can hide my picture from me so I don't have to watch me. Because that's always.
It's intuitive. Oh, we're live. Fabulous. Hello, beautiful souls. Avalon here, and I have a very, very special guest with me today. A lovely woman from across the pond, Miss Deborah Lipp. Say hi to Deborah.
Hey, everyone. Hey, everyone.
So
my cat might join us.
He's been sprinkling his little magic around for us, fixing some minor technical difficulties. But yay, we're here, and we're going to talk about lots of witchy, beautiful witchy things. Now, for those who don't know, Deborah Lipp is an author on Wiccan books, and I think you've done a few other little works here and there. Is that correct? Am I correct in that?
I did, as a matter of fact, write a book about James Bond movies. So, of course, today with losing Roger Moore, that's a very sad day. And I've written a section on a book about madmen. So my other passion, besides Wicca and magic and tarot, my other passion is pop culture. I love movies and TV. But of my 8 books, 7 are in the occult. So that's where I do most of my playtime.
Oh, that's so yummy. And let me just tell you how delicious the word occult sounds. Isn't that one of the most delicious words? When you hear it, it just opens something up. And I love it.
I love it. As a word, I love it because people get very afraid of really heavy, strong words. That's a strong word. It's not energy. It's not a light word. It's strong. It's occult. And what we do has an ancient history, and we can be proud of that. We don't have to,
Absolutely, absolutely. I love it. It's right up there with one of my favorite words. Occult, esoteric, arcane. They are all things that just sing to that witch's soul. And I find that if you're the type of individual that, is stunned by that word, then there's a little bit of something there extra for you specifically, because there's a little something inside of you that needs some exploring, some deep, mystical, intense exploration. So it's a very triggering phrase.
That's very true. Another word I love is psychic, because like people want to say intuitive, because intuitive sounds like something, your mother does, your buddy does. I feel intuitive. Your therapist does that, right? But psychic, that's where it gets a little, that's arcane.
And I must admit, I'm one of those people that rarely uses the word psychic because of its connotations, and because I know how the word is received as well, and I am nervous. I'm more inclined to use witchcraft, which I am, than to use the word psychic, although behind the scenes amongst my, my trusted friends were like, oh, it's a little psychic hit, it's a little psychic talent, a little psychic this, and I have no problem then in that regard to utilize the term. But it's a very, very activating, a very triggering word as well, and that one hits me.
Yeah, and that's why you should use it, because what it's doing is it's getting into that part of you that is afraid of power. Right? When we use power words and we're scared of them, when we use those words, we open up the power. It's actually a trick. It's actually a trick.
It's a trick. It is. It just worked on me. I could feel that. All right, let's see how I go with that. Let's see if I can't weave that word into a few new videos upcoming. Let's try that on for size, because I'm all about self-development here. So let's talk about your very first book. So what happened? How did it come about? Your very first book, you thought, I've got this work within me, and I am now just wanting to share it. Was it a multitude of people going, wow, you should write a book? Or was it like an epiphany? Or how did it come to pass? And then how did that sort of lead on to like another 7 works on the occult?
Well, a couple of things happened. There were people who were always saying to me, you should write a book, you should write a book. I really attribute it to Donald Michael Craig, who is one of our great occultists, the author of Modern Magic. And for many years, the editor of the Llewellyn Journal. Every time he saw me, he's like, when are you writing a book? When are you writing a book? So the fact that I knew a lot of writers and that people would say that to me, that was certainly an influence on me. But I had started writing a book, and I had gotten really stuck, and it never went anywhere. And you know, back in the 80s and 90s, when there were a lot of pagan magazines, I used to write a lot of articles, so I knew I could write. And what happened, and this happens, is my coven broke up. Now, you know, covens break up and they break your heart. And I had a coven for 10 years and it broke up and it broke my heart. And so while I was sort of in that space where I was saying to myself, I'm never going to have another coven. I'm never going to let myself get heartbroken like this again. All of this teaching that I had been doing all of the time, excuse me, all of this teaching that I had been doing was, it had no, see, this is ridiculous. I work like this every day. I had nothing to do with it. This was so essentially Elements of Rituals, my first book. It was, she's read it. It was, it was like about a year's worth of classes. It was that frustration of not being able to teach my witchcraft and practice my witchcraft. So I just sat down and I wrote it all.
Wow.
And I mean, most of my books actually have been written in 9 months. So they're babies, I guess. Most of them go from beginning to end, from the time I start writing to the time I send it off is 9 months. And so they're babies, and off they go. And then, you know, honestly, once you've written one book, you know you can write a book. It's not as scary to write the second book. Because most people, something like 80% of writers have written exactly one book, you know, of people who've written books. And so then once you've written 2, then publishers trust you. They're interested in you because you can actually keep producing. They'll invest that energy into you. And that's really, really helpful also. But then it becomes like, at that point, now I've written 2 books. So now it's become like a thing that I do. It wasn't a fluke, right? The first one, like, maybe I just happened to write a book, right? And the second one, I write books. I see. So now it gives you some sense of accomplishment. So then, and they have gotten shorter. Like the first 2 were like everything I wanted to say. And now that I've written a bunch of them, I'm more like targeted. I get a specific idea. I was friends with Scott Cunningham, and he used to say the point of a book is to teach one thing. You know, that was the purpose of a book, is to teach somebody one thing. Now, maybe a book can teach more than that. But if somebody walks away from a book and they've learned one thing, you've done your job. So as I've progressed as a writer, I write shorter books, but I feel like I'm targeting that one thing. So like in my new book, I'm going to teach you how to construct a spell. That's what I'm going to teach you. I'm not going to teach you everything about magic. I'm going to teach you how to raise power and create a spell. That's what I'm going to teach you. So
wow, I love it. I love it. And the fact that you mentioned Scott Cunningham just almost brought me to tears then. Just like
I miss him. I do. I mean, he's been gone a long time and I still miss him. And he was a wonderful person. He was, people don't know this, one of the funniest people I have ever met.
Oh,
funny,
so
like
nice.
collected toys and sent toys to me in the mail, and
that's fabulous. And I think a lot of witches out there cut their teeth on on Scott Cunningham. You know, he was one of those books that, you know, I guess he's been around for a very long time. He had been writing for a very long time. And then, you know, when witchcraft became popularized, thankfully through sort of more pop culture memes, saw a bit of a surge of it, you know, around the time of the craft. When you walked in, and I remember this distinctively, when I walked into a New Age store, the type that I had been visiting for quite some time, all of a sudden there were books on Wicca. And some of those very first books were books by Scott Cunningham. And then, of course, Starhawk was there. And, you know, you had your classic line of pagan authors. So many people cut their teeth on these, you know, on these books. And it's just beautiful to hear you mention it from a very personal perspective. And so that actually touched my heart, I've got to say. Oh. And I've loved this. I've loved it. Sorry, continue.
Go ahead. Well, there's so many. There's a lot of people who wrote wonderful books for you to. Scott, Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner is an excellent book to be your first book that you read. And kind of how I've developed myself as a writer is when you get ready for those second books. So Elements of Ritual doesn't introduce you to Wicca. It doesn't tell you the very first thing you need to know about Wicca. What is Wicca? What is a witch? You know, it doesn't get into that. It kind of assumes you've already read a book or two. And then maybe you're hungry for just a little more. I think The Way of Four is a book all about the four elements. So probably you already know what they are. You probably didn't buy the book and never heard of air, fire, water, and earth. But now what? Because what I'm always encountering, you know, is people saying that to me, saying, now what? Okay, that's witchcraft. I've been doing witchcraft. Now what? Is there more? Is it deeper? Is it more complicated? Is it more powerful? And that's kind of my niche. That's where I write.
Oh, see, that's beautiful. And I've got to say that it's so nice to be able to talk to someone who practices specifically Wicca, because there are so many baby witches, new witches, neophytes, whatever you'd like to call them, those who are very, very new to the craft, and their first point of contact is Wicca. And I find that Wicca gets a bit of a bad rap. Now, we've got a question out there from a lady by the name of Alchemy's Arrow, and she's written a little question here, and that is, why does Wicca have such a bad rap as being fake magic? And I've got to say that I hear this a little bit as well, because like I was saying, the first point of call is Wicca. You get introduced to it, you love it, and then all of a sudden you're an eclectic Wiccan, and then all of a sudden you're no longer Wiccan anymore, and there seems to be this this disassociation almost. Now, I have a tremendous respect for Wicca. I find that the fact that when I moved to Australia, the first books that I could find on magic that sort of helped to soothe my occult heart were based on Wicca, and I really connected with the elements of ritual within Wicca, and I found them very conducive to rituals that I had practiced at home. And so I found a beautiful sense of comfort, and I have enduring respect for the practice of Wicca. And so I'm a little bit, you know, I'm a little bit confused as to why it sort of fades out there for a lot of people. Do you think that it's because of it being sort of, there are so many traditions out there that might be a bit wishy-washy? Because I believe that you're Gardnerian, is that correct?
I am.
And would you explain to me, please, to educate me and anyone watching, sort of a little bit about the structure, sort of a little bit about the primary structure and tradition, you know, popular traditions? Because I know there's Gardnerian, there's Alexandrian, there's a few others that I can't pluck out of my head right now.
Sure. So
would you mind just giving us a little intro there?
So that it gets a little complicated, and I'll try to not be complicated. We start in the 1930s in England with Gerald Gardner and some other occultists sort of reinventing witchcraft, kind of rediscovering European folk magic and occultism and blending it with, you know, kind of Golden Dawn style magical occultism, that kind of stuff. And we know that the Philip Heselton, this amazing writer who has done a 2-volume biography of Gerald Gardner, he figured out how far back that original coven that Gardner was initiated into. So you start with some people in England in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they introduce a particular style of Wicca. They introduced the word Wicca, which originally landed one C, and it's initiatory, which means it takes a witch to make a witch. You probably heard that phrase. So a Gardnerian has to be initiated by a Gardnerian. Alexander's is the founder of the Alexandrian tradition. It's very similar in style to Gardnerian. There's more difference from coven to coven of individual people than there really are between the traditions as a whole. They're pretty similar. And then what happens, and especially when it gets to the US in the 60s, is there's just this explosion of demand. There's way more people who want to be initiated than there are people available to do it. And so people start inventing traditions. And when they do it, they often lie about the fact that this is invented. Mm-hmm. They say this is ancient and my grandmother, initiated me in the kitchen with her wooden spoon and, spun me around 3 times and all those stories. They call them grandmother stories for a reason. And some of the traditions that started from some suspect provenance, some of those traditions are still around. Some of them are really good. If you take your magic seriously and you take what you're doing seriously and you figure out the structure of ritual that makes sense, you can develop a system that's just amazing. And so there's a lot of traditions right now. There's the McFarlane Dianic tradition, there's Blue Star, there's Georgian, there's the Welsh, and there's Narug. There's a lot of traditions out there, some of which, people like Narug, they're very straight. We made this up. We were interested in being Gardnerians. We couldn't find Gardnerians, so we made this up. And that was in the 60s, and they're still around. So there's, and I think, where Wicca gets a bad rap is 2 places. One, there were so many different kinds of Wicca that it got to be where it was like Wicca could be anything, right? So people felt that it was kind of mushy. That's one place where it gets kind of a bad rap. Another place is when people started figuring out that some of that ancient history wasn't exactly true. They started to distrust the whole thing. And another place is where the whole Wiccan read thing. Like, because of the idea of an it harm none, do what you will, people think that Wiccans are all sweetness and light and they only do nice, sweet, adorable, harmless things, and maybe people want more than that. And I think you've been talking to me for all of 20 minutes, and I think you can already figure out that I'm not cute and sweet and adorable. That's not my thing.
I dig it.
So I think that the idea that the only thing that you can do is sort of sweet and fluffy and cute, that's fine for some people. That's their true path for some people. But that's not all that Wicca is. It's an option. I mean, for me, I take my tradition very, very seriously. I was initiated when I was 21 years old. I am in my 50s. So it is more than half my life. It is really my whole life. It is the life that I've known. I take it very seriously. I work hard at it. And it fills my heart. So
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think that that's really important, actually. I think that part of being a practicing witch, whether you're solitary or in a coven, is that you want your practice, your craft, to be incredibly nourishing. It needs to add dimension and flow and satisfaction. It needs to elevate your existence in a way that makes you feel powerful every single day, not just during ritual. It's like a little swagger that you get, really, when you think about it. And those who are very dedicated to their craft, those who do practice, whether you know, solitary or in a coven, they do have that essence of, I'm deadly fucking serious right now, you know, and you have that essence, like, you're like, I'm deadly fucking serious, you know, and I think that that's really beautiful. And I think any witch worth a damn has that energy of like, yeah, I'm a witch and I'm deadly fucking serious about it, you know, and I think it invokes such pride and it inspires that kind of attitude, that kind of energy, all encompassing. You know when someone is being legitimate, you know it, you can feel it in the words and the way that they carry themselves. And I think that, you know, that's part of, you know, that's a really important thing. You want it to nourish you, you really want it to nourish you, and you want it to sort of permeate out in all directions, and that's a really good thing.
And good times and bad. I mean, I want to say it's not just for when you're feeling powerful. Sometimes people walk away because they don't feel powerful. Then what do you do? You know, people grieve, people become depressed, people are sad. Your craft should be there with you. Your gods should be there with you through that as well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. It's not just for one state of mind. That's definitely sure. And this is why I like at the moment, and it's a phrase that I'm a little bit like, that I find that it's oversaturated at the moment, but I still love it. Like, I love not the phrase itself, but the, you know, the concept, the working, the theology behind it, and that is shadow work. And then other terminologies and other practices like it, because it throws into sharp relief the fact that there is, you know, there's a plethora of ways that one can navigate the full spectrum of emotion to assist you in being much more well-grounded and authentic to who you are. And I think witches have really, you know, jumped on the Jungian bandwagon for that reason alone. And then, you know, they've sought outside, you know, sort of outside influences that are a bit more mindfully oriented, sort of more Buddhist principles to allow them to at least, you know, focus and meditate and calm, and, you know, and it becomes a much more holistic practice now when you sort of look outside at these beautiful practices that are going out there that are contributing loads to the modern witch specifically, and you know that it's all about, you know, navigating the full spectrum of human experience. Although there are out there, those out there that probably disagree, and, you know, each to their own. Now, Miss Deborah, I would like to, oh, hang on. Somebody wrote something really lovely. I would like to ask you about your upcoming book.
Okay, it just came in the mail. I'm going to show you because I just got it. And now the cat's sitting on me again. But it just came. I just got it.
Oh, wow.
Magical Power for Beginners. And that's my author copy. So people are starting to get, like, people who do reviews and stuff are starting to get copies. It should be everywhere in June. And it's from Llewellyn, and they distribute worldwide. So no problem for any of your viewers anywhere in the world to get it. And they have Llewellyn has a 4 beginners series. And I did not set out to write a book for that series. And they came back to me and they said, you know, and here's the thing, so I've been a witch since the 80s. It was a long time ago, right? And there weren't that many books out. And how we all learned, we were all reading all the occultism stuff, right? We were all reading, you know, you had to read Paul Husson, and you had to read these books that did they had a lot of Kabbalah in them, they had a lot of technique in them, they had a lot of Golden Dawn stuff in them, all the books that because there just weren't that many books. But now you can become, if you have a pagan heart, you can find out about the gods, and you can read books that are exactly what you want. And what happened, I started to notice that people weren't learning magic. Well, and the funny thing is, like, I didn't get into this for the magic. I got into it for the gods. That was my original draw to Wicca. So if I had tons of wonderful pagan material available to me, I might not have really learned magic because that wasn't what I was focused on. But I did learn magic because we were all supposed to then. I find that there is a generation of pagans that doesn't really know a lot about basic how to raise energy, what to do with the energy once you've raised it, how to figure out what spell to do, why to do it, and how to make sure it works. Really basic, this is what magic is stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't know
I'd be
it now
inclined to
because
agree.
it's not part of a pagan education now. And the reason it isn't part of a pagan education is for very good reasons. It's wonderful that all this pagan material is there. But honestly, like, this is part of witchcraft. So I want people to learn it. And then my publisher, my editor laughed at me. She's like, well, you are saving the world one book at a time. And I said, that's right.
That's fabulous. That is fabulous. But I'm very inclined to agree with you there. Some of the, I don't know, I'm nowhere near as old as you, but I feel like, you know, the fact that you're in a different part of the world and you're giving me your perspective, I can see some of that perspective here. Now, I'm edging towards my 40s, and I have done the open circle thing a lot because I found coming from Brazil to Australia really jarring for me from a spiritual perspective. It's very raw over there, and it's very polished over here. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I found that when interacting with people in circle, I was looking for inspiration. I was looking for tribe. I was looking for mentorship. I was looking for a bunch of different things. You know, I was looking for nourishment essentially, which is why most people go to these open circles and attend outer circle gatherings and things of that nature, because they want the experience. You know, they want to be activated in some way. And I found that it was more about philosophy at that time, and there was less emphasis on the practical. And I have always been a person that is practically oriented because I don't learn very well if I'm not doing something. You know, I can't really learn from audio as well, or I could learn better from video because there's a bit more of a practical element to it. But, you know, from a book, I can't really learn it. I have to take what I've read in a book and I have to try and practice it and construct it in some regard. And I find that, you know, that's a little bit of a disconnect there for me. But I did find that the emphasis was a lot on the philosophical, and I was very surprised because, you know, you would say that Brazil's a third world country, and they have a mix of all different cultures. They've got a good amount of Wicca over there as well. They've got a good amount of witchcraft. They've got, you know, a bleed down of Stregaria and, you know, so many other little occult practices, lots of shamanism. And I guess that, you know, the cultural flow tends to intertwine those things together. And it's very primal, it's very hands-on, and it's very practical, and there's less emphasis on philosophical. And so the issue there is in reverse. You have to really dig to find the philosophy. You'll find the practice really easy, but you have to dig for the philosophy. And I came over here and it was in reverse. You can only get
I'm losing your audio.
Couldn't really get the practical, so I'm just like, what's going on? And you,
all right, I've lost your audio. Are you?
I'm there.
All right. Give me a sec. Just pause for a second. Let the video catch up because it froze for a second.
No worries.
All right,
Did
there
I
you
vanish?
are. Now
Okay. I can still see myself in my little window here.
I've actually I initiated the first Gardnerian coven in Brazil.
I did hear about that. I did hear about that. In Sao Paulo. How funny. How funny. That's where I was born.
Really?
Yeah. By pure accident. I was born there by pure accident. And I was meant to be born in Rio, but I was born in Sao Paulo. I was born in São José dos Campos in Sao Paulo. Yes. That's so exciting. So how does that work? Because I imagine that there would have to be a certain amount of, and this is just me imagining, mind you, it doesn't mean it's correct, but I imagine that there would have to be a certain amount of attendance. So would the now High Priestess or the coven often go to, you're in New Jersey, New York area, is that correct?
Yep.
Would they have to come to you regularly? Do you come to them? Do you guys meet in the middle?
We I went there a couple of times. They came here a couple of times. We spent a lot of time, you know, chatting, doing WhatsApp, doing hangout, and between, you know, spending a fortune in airfare. I mean, we could have bought a fleet of cars with that. And talking and emailing and just really making very deep connections. We made it work. We made it work. It was really hard, you know, but they're just wonderful people, and I trust them and love them so much that I was able to sort of let go of having them here where I can see them, you know. And
that's beautiful.
The beauty of what they're doing to bring this kind of Wicca to a country that didn't have it before, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is. I think it's really nice that despite the fact that you're not physically in that location, that doesn't mar the fact that they can't connect a little bit more. And it's, you know, it's really nice to see that it's not restrictive like that. It's not restricted to geography, because I think that's another aspect. And I can say this from personal perspective as well. I've lived in a lot of very small towns in Australia that we'll consider more inland or outback. And, you know, there's not a lot out there. There's not a lot out there for the magical practitioner. And you really have to search for it. It's not impossible. But thankfully, the internet is now the thing, and people can connect a lot more freely with those of a like mind. And so geographical isolation from a spiritual perspective, which was very much a thing back in the day, is no longer such a thing in nowadays. And so, you know, with this example of you know, creating or assisting to create a coven in Brazil, like, do you have any plans on going anywhere else? Have you got any things going on in Australia, or, you know, further outward? New Zealand?
You know, Brazil happened by accident. I went there to talk at a conference, like I do, and it just happened. We just made this deep connection, and we just stayed in touch, and then I went back, and it just happened. It was magical. I mean, I've been to Australia years ago for a pagan thing, and the first pagan festival ever in Queensland, actually. And that was in '98. So,
nice.
but it just happened with these people. I don't normally do distance training because I always feel like you have to be personal, you have to be close, you have to be intimate. And it just happened that I met people that I felt that way with, even through the distance. Witchcraft is intimate. It's you know, it's from the heart. You know, people talk about love and trust, or perfect love and perfect trust, and you hear those phrases, and people don't talk about, well, what does that mean? Like, it means that you really love and trust these people. And that's more important than what country they're in or any of the stuff. How old they are, what they look like. You know,
that's exactly right. I think it's something that traverses barriers of any kind, really, when you think about it. If it's there, if the sentiment is there, if the situation, if there's flow, if everything's working, things are naturally, and they evolve on the fly. And I think that that's really good. You know, many things were created in that manner, and they're very long lasting, and, you know, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So can we have a little bit at your book right now? Can you explain the construct of this very new book of yours, and what someone who will purchase this book will experience?
So there's explanation of things, and there's definition of things, but there's also exercises throughout. So every time I teach you something, I also, here's some exercises, here's some stuff you can do. And the first thing it asks is the question, where does power come from? Where does magic come from? How do you work? So we've got some basic, it's a little abstract here, not your favorite part, but magic works through focus and intention, through transcending time and space, and through the raising power. So we talk about how to learn to focus your intention, how to develop mind skills, how to meditate, how to know what you really want. Knowing what you really want is the hardest part of doing a spell.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, there's some exercises. And then what does it mean to transcend time and space? That's probably as philosophical as the book gets, is in that section. But you don't want to throw some spell into the future, right? Because there's like this lag. Your energy is sort of waiting till tomorrow and tomorrow, and it's trying to get into the future. How about if we didn't set, instead of doing that, how about if we made the future go away and the past go away, and we made everything be present in an eternal moment? And then your magic is here and your intention is there, and you just, you know, you just get them together because you've transcended time and space. So we talk about that.
Ooh,
so
yummy.
That's a chapter, that's a section. And then I spend most of the book then talking about, where does power come from? Like, we all know what power is. It's that thing that makes you feel, but where do you get it? How do you get it? What are all the different ways you can get it? Right? Comes from the gods, from your body, from your mind, from culture, from rhythm, from nature, from, I mean, there's all these different ways, that all these different places where power come from. Well, that's interesting. How do you get the power out? It's in there. How do I get it out? Right?
Exactly.
So that's probably the bulk of the book, is that. And again, there's exercises. And once we've gone through all the various ways of getting power, then the next thing is, how do you send power? How do you put a spell together and send power in a spell? Now, one of the things that's real interesting is that you can read a zillion spell books and they will never tell you which part of the spell you're supposed to send the power in. Do you ever notice that? It says, do this, do this, do this. It never says raise power, send power. You have to sort of assume it between the lines. Like, I've got Judica Ilkes's 5,000 spell book. I
have that one too. Yep.
It's really good if you want to, like, kill a bug. It's huge. It's a great book. I love it, but never tells you where the power is in the spell. You're supposed to figure that out for yourself.
Yep, that's true.
I talk about that. One of the exercises, by the way, is to go find a book on your bookshelf of spells, pull out a spell, and for each spell, raise the power and send the power. Like stick a little note in the margin. Raise power here, send power here. That's one of the exercises, right? Because it's not there. You have to figure it out. So we talk about that. How do you do that? What happens? And then I've got a couple of fake spells, and the two, you know, like pretend spells. One of them to get a lover, and one of them is to get a job, because those are the things that people want. And then I write a spell, and then I go step by step. Here's this part of this book. Here's where you raise. Here's where I'm raising power. See, here's where I'm doing this. Here's where I'm doing that. So it's I'm going to try to show it to you on the camera. I don't know if this will work. Sweet. But let me see if I can show you how this works. So you see how half of it is in shade?
Yes.
So on this side is the spell, and on this side is actually saying, see what this is doing here? You see what this is doing here? And it's actually explaining.
Oh. So you're dissecting the spell. You're dissecting the scripture. Right,
and everything where the dissection is, everything is stuff that was already in the previous rest of the book. So you should know it. So it's like, hey, this is your final exam kind of thing.
Fabulous.
And you should be able to pull it together. And there's a lot of little how-tos in it. How to write a consecration, for example.
Wonderful.
People say all the time, go and consecrate your wand. But there's all sorts of how-tos in there. They really, and it's not married to Wicca. It's not married to any pagan path at all. You can use this book no matter what your path is. You can do Christian magic, you can do atheist magic, whatever your thing is. This is just about magic. It's up to you how you do it.
That's fabulous.
I'm excited.
I'm intrigued by that, because I do like dissecting things, like literary things. It's a quiet little quirk of mine that I've done since very little. And I think I borrowed it off my uncle, who used to do these little crazy notes in the margins of poetry. And he would say to me, I'm dissecting the poem. And I'd be like, okay, so I've got to now go and do that very same thing with everything that I read. And so I've never been one to put pen and ink on a book, because I'm a little bit like, my books. But I'm bang there with the sticky notes and little margin notes, and I'll dissect it in that manner. And I think that it's really important. I think that that's really important. I think what you actually you've also done there is introduce the concept of critical thinking, like the why. Why is this here? Why is that there? And that's something that's not emphasized enough, because we're thrown book recommendations and we're just bombarded with information, full stop. And no, people are just very quick to just assume that's it. That's it. That's all there is. There's only one way. There's this way. And that's it. There's no, why does this happen? Why does that happen? Okay, why does it happen in that order? Why that particular color, and how, why, the whys of it all. And I think it's really important to ask the whys, and by teaching that concept of dissecting and, where to raise power, where to send it out, this is part of a fundamental practice that should really be taught, more openly.
That's something, that I think that asking why and understanding what you're doing is something that is in books, because I don't expect that every single person who reads my book does what I do, but if you understand why, then you can take what I've written and you can apply it to what you do. So you can disagree with my books, you can read my book and go, she's wrong about this, I want to do it this other way, but you will be grounded in why. Because like my first book, Elements of Ritual, is about why do you cast a circle? Why do you call quarters? Why do you cast a circle before you call quarters? Basic Wicca. And there are 100 books on the shelf that will tell you to cast the circle and call the quarters, but I don't know other books that say that ask you those questions. Now, you want to go away from my book and say, well, I'm going to call the quarters and then cast the circle. I think Deborah Lipp is wrong. We just had 50 pages on why, and you've shifted something inside of you about your understanding, and if that resulted in you disagreeing with me, yay, great, that's wonderful. It means you're thinking and you're going to bring your experience into your craft. So read the whys, understand the whys. And then, agree with me, disagree with me, study more, find other teachers who say the opposite of what I say. That's
wonderful.
Being smart reader is, right?
Yeah.
That's who I'm writing to. I'm writing to somebody who can learn this stuff and then want to learn more.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great target audience too. I was actually having a bit of a flick through your Elements of Ritual, actually, because I thought, I'm going to chat to Deborah Lipp. I'm going to go and check out one of her books. Now, the cover of that book is freaking stunning, by the way. It's
I love that. I can't take credit for that. It's beautiful.
Fabulous. It's fabulous. And one of the very first things, and I think it's just the very introduction of that book, and I can't pull the exacts out here, but it was along the lines of, what does ritual do? What is it aimed to do? And it was a question right there in the very beginning. And I'm like, well, would you look at that? Would you look at that? A very important question in the introduction of the book. And I was immediately taken by that, because I can't exactly remember the exact phrase, but it was along the lines of, does ritual do? What does ritual do, and does it do what it's supposed to do? Does it connect you with the gods? And it was along those lines. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard that question posed out there in any way, like really you know, how does ritual affect you? What does it do? Is your ritual doing what it's supposed to do? Are you achieving something through your ritual? It threw all of those questions into sharp relief, and I was like, look at that. That's a book within itself right there. You know, that's really a foundation of a book right there. You know, these beautiful questions. And I like I've really enjoyed the manner in which you write, because it's conversational. It's not arrogant. You know, I find that there's quite a few books out there, and those who have read a good amount of books will know that there's a sense of ego and arrogance in some of the books. It has to be done this way. Well, it doesn't have to be done anyway. You just need to find the way that works, and then understand why it works for you that way. And there's that conversation to have with yourself. So I found your books really grounded. I found them very nourishing and very devoid of ego. So thank you for doing that.
And when I'm writing, there's always a reader right there. Like, I'm looking at my monitor, but there's always a reader right there. So I'm always having an interaction as I write, and that, I think, helps me as a writer to be conversational, to be warm, to think about what does the reader need, you know, because people sometimes don't. They're writing for their own benefit. I'm writing for the reader.
That's exactly right.
I've written 8 books already. You know what? Whatever ego I got out of it, I got it already. Yay me, I'm a writer. So I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for you.
That's beautiful. And I think
every now and then
you can tell.
I get an email. Yeah. Every now and then I get an email that really changed your book changed me. And I'm like, well, then I can write another book now that you've said that, because that's what it's for, you know?
That's it. And there's definitely that difference between those who are writing for the reader and those who are writing to purely demonstrate the tremendous amount of knowledge that exists in their brain. Like, I am super intelligent and an expert on this, and so I'm going to write a book. And the book lacks warmth, I feel. You know, books that are like that, they are very informational. This is no disrespect in that regard. You will get a tremendous amount of information, but then they become more reference material rather than nourishing reads. And there's the difference. Like, if you want a nourishing read, you go for something that's a little bit more conversational. And then if you want something to reference, to consistently refer back to, and especially to learn new terminologies and things like that, and to just, you know, just have it as an encyclopedia on your shelf, then. And I find that those books are not as absorbed as easy either. And I'll always remember these beautiful books that are conversational. I remember all of the books that I've read of Scott Cunningham and Fiona Horn. I'll remember Starhawk's, you know, reads and things like that, because they were introducing me to a concept in a very open, grounded and informational manner. It wasn't heavy. It didn't feel heavy for the wrong reasons. It was heavy. The material was there. The content was amazing, but it wasn't heavy for the wrong reasons. It wasn't heavy because of ego. So that's really important.
Well, thank you. I've had people use some of my books for like study groups, for like discussion groups that sort of shape their coven classes around them and stuff. That's very, very flattering. But I mean, like, when you read Magical Power for Beginners, I want you to do spells. Look down and say, okay, I'm ready. Okay, here's my wand, you know, I'm ready, here I go. And I want it to become real for you. That's my point, is to make magic real. Put your money where your mouth is, you know, put your money where your thammy is. And here we go again. And she taps on my leg. She's sitting on the floor going tap, 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 tap. So put your money where your mouth is. Do the spells. And you know what? Don't be afraid to fail.
That's exactly. That's good advice. That's good advice. Deborah, would you be so kind to just, you know, for anybody watching right now, this may very well be a video that is stumbled upon, you know, in future years and months, etc. And there will always be someone who has very little understanding and just wants a little, you know, just wants a little jumping off point. Would you explain or just share a little bit about a very basic ritual, something that's very basic, that's very nourishing, that could assist someone to dip their toe, and just, you know, just a little something. It doesn't have to be elaborate, just a little intro ritual.
I think the most beautiful intro ritual in the world is the one that was my first ritual, which was from drawing down the moon the self-blessing ritual. It is the most, it is nourishing and it is sustaining. You take salt water and wine from your feet, and you just, you know, you don't even have to cast a circle, anything like that. You have salt water, you have wine. One for purification, one for blessing. Burn some incense, light some candles, pause for a moment, ground and center yourself, take some deep breaths. When you're ready, you anoint your feet first with the salt water, then with the wine. Blessed be my feet that have brought me in these ways. Blessed, and then your knees. Blessed be my knees that will kneel before the gods. Blessed be my genitals from which all life comes. Blessed be my breasts, formed in beauty and strength. Blessed be my lips that shall speak words of worship. And blessed be mother, for I am your child. And that is the most, I can't take credit for that. I got it out of Drawing Down the Moon in 1981. It was the first ritual I ever did by myself. It took me through a very bad moment in my life, and got me out the other side of it. Just that it takes 15 minutes to do.
Mm.
And
They're
it's so beautiful, so beautiful.
That is really beautiful. The moment you started talking about it, I don't think I've ever done that ritual, but I do remember reading about it, and that's a little bit inspiring. That's got me. I think I might try it. I definitely think I might try it.
I did. I mean, I wrote about this. So one of my books is called Marry Mead Again. It's a memoir. I thought the kind of Wicca that we were practicing before the internet was kind of fading. I wanted to be able to share that story and have that story sort of preserved. And, I was 21, 22. I had just started, I had just left my first husband because I had a horrible first marriage that lasted a year. And I went and slept with this guy that was my boyfriend from college, like to sort of, you know, get over my husband. Look, I slept with somebody else. And it was awful. It made me feel ashamed. It made me feel dirty. And I went and I did this ritual. And I mean, I slept like a baby that night. It healed me, you know. And it was a very dark day in my life, and it healed me.
And that's ritual. That's ritual. Rituals for the good times. Yeah. It's for the bad times. It's for the in-between times. And I think that it's a terrible shame when a practitioner puts their practice on pause or walks away because they're going through so much turmoil in their lives that they don't have time for magic. They don't have time for their practice anymore. And I honestly think that it should be very much in reverse, that it's through that magic, through that practice, the cultivation of a very strong practice, that you can heal the adversity that might be around you at that particular point in time, whether internal or external. And I think that that's a really beautiful example of just the whys and the hows of that. So thank you for sharing that very personal story with us.
Thanks.
That is fabulous. Now, in the spirit of raising vibrations, I would like to raise a little energy in a metaphorical way and talk a little bit about, I don't know, what are some of your favorite ways of raising energies? Because I come from a very tribal base. I'm all about, I love to raise energy. I love to raise active energy through dancing and drumming and, you know, chanting and singing and fires and like, I like the tribal experience.
I love all of that. I used to always dance to raise power. And then, you know, I have a pretty screwed up knee, so I don't always feel like I can dance to raise power. I love also, I do less drumming than I used to because I have an apartment now. And actually, the lady in the apartment below me is Hindu, and she does puja. And so sometimes there's just incense coming up through the floor. So I don't think she minds what we do. But you know what I love is body percussion. Hand claps, finger snaps, you know, doing drumming on your body instead of being really, really loud, doing this wonderful rhythmic, soft sound. That's one of my favorite things. I love chanting together as a group. I love candle magic. You know, I like candle magic because then you don't have to figure out what to do with the leftovers. I have a whole section on disposing of spells. What are you going to do once you're done with the stuff? Turn themselves down. It just solves a problem.
That's a thing. That's a thing that comes from, that's very prevalent in my culture. We have a tendency to do these elaborate spells, and then they last for months, and then you have to go out into a place and in nature and do this one thing, and rarely does it ever go the way that it's supposed to go. You need to cast something out into the ocean, but the waves are raging and it's never going the way you're supposed to, and it can actually cause undue stress. You don't need to stress yourself about that.
Oh no, there's nothing like sneaking around in the woods, you know, with a shovel. Like trying not to get caught. And like, I'm from the suburbs, you know, I live in the city now, but I'm from the suburbs. So I'm not talking about remote woods. I'm talking about woods with like, there's a house, you know, 500 meters away, you know, and I'm just sneaking around. And so you really get with a shovel in the night, in the dark, with my bad knee. That always goes well.
That sounds like the beginnings of a horror story right there, in the dark, in the woods, and a shovel with my back.
I had, you know, you make an offering to, oh yeah, so you're sneaking around a graveyard and then hoping that, because you're leaving coins at the gate of the cemetery and stuff, you can get in trouble.
Oh my God.
That's how you know you're dedicated.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, just there. My beautiful.
Oh, there she is, yeah. I see her.
Yeah, she's very kindred to me. She was with me for a lot of years. So yes, I'm down. I'm down. I know exactly what you're talking about. The kinds of like escapades that one can get into just to do the spell, just to get either gather the elements of the spell or dispose of the spell is just freaking insane. And you know what? There is a time and a place for it as well. It's almost a rite of passage. You do have to go out there in the dark, you know, with a shovel in the woods and risk bears and snakes and spiders and all that. Just once.
Yeah,
just once,
sure.
So that you know.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things that having to do all of that does, and I talk about this in the book, is like it slows you down. Like people wanted, okay, I can do a spell. And you can do a spell with nothing. This is true. You can do a spell with nothing. You want to raise power, you clap your hands and you jump up and down, and you can do jumping jacks, you can raise power. We did a healing spell for a cat once. We sang a catchy jingle from a cat food commercial. I mean, you know, we made the connection to the cat, right? I mean, you don't need stuff. But one of the things that gathering the ingredients does, it adds power, and the book explains how it adds power, but it also slows you down. And so like you're thinking about it, and if you could just do a spell instantly, you know, maybe you're doing it impulsively. Maybe you need a little time to think through what you actually want here.
Yeah. Also,
it raises power, because the whole time that you're gathering your ingredients, you're like creating this meditative state. Green candle, because green means this, and I'm going to burn this candle, and you're visualizing it, and you're sort of projecting yourself into the spell. Now I'm going to go get some cinnamon, because the store with the green candles didn't have any cinnamon. So now I have to go to a different store and get cinnamon, and cinnamon means this, and it smells like this, and I'm going to use it with the green candle and the cinnamon, and now you're putting it all together. That's the cat tail. That's the cat's tail. And onto the floor you go. And so you're actually raising power. And one of the things that my teacher taught me was sometimes when you're doing that, the spell actually starts to work already, even though you haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
But you have to go ahead and do it anyway. Because all of that energy that you put into that spell, if you don't then go ahead and finish it up and do the spell, it's going to kind of fade. You know,
Yeah,
so like,
it's so true. It's true. It's absolutely true. From the very moment, I think from the very moment you set out, like my coven and I, we have the ritual buzz. We get the ritual buzz because we have our rituals. We have a schedule of how things are going to work. And then, you know, on the build up to it, what's going to happen. And you might have weeks to prepare for this. It might be like, I'll schedule for a whole year, you know, so you know what's coming up and when it's coming up. And then you start to go, oh my God, this is a ritual and I'm just going to get there and it's going to be amazing. And you've already got the nerves, that excited nervousness just before you even begin. So your energy is really high. Like mine at least is very, very high. I know that I'm going to do this. I'm putting a lot of time and energy into it. This is not to say that I won't cast on the fly, but when you have that time to really think about what you're doing and you have a little bit of a build up to it, it really helps to shift that focus, to open up that sphere of consciousness, to shift that focus and to expect the unexpected. Because I think when you set the intention for doing a magical ritual and doing a little bit of spellcraft, everything means something in that moment. You know, the bird that just squawks and swoops right in front of your face, it means something. You know, the light that just might have just flickered on and off, it means something. Everything means something. And so you're in this really delicious heightened state of awareness where you are in the most amount of delicious magic in that very moment. So raising energy from there, like it's freaking delicious.
It's your head start, and you can, and there's lots of ways of creating that head start. I mean, like, you know, people say, do I need all this stuff to do magic? You know, you don't need a car to get to work either, but if you walk, it's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah.
You know,
it's true.
I mean,
it's true.
You can start to do things the same way every time, and your mind will start to just work. So if you have a magical robe that you always wear, or magical jewelry that you always wear, just the very act of putting on your magical robe and your magical jewelry, look, you've started to shift your consciousness. Your body starts to know, oh, I'm wearing my witchcraft earrings, you know, and you can feel them on your head, and you feel different. And now you feel the magic feel, because you've started the steps.
That's exactly right.
And it's simple. That's a simple thing,
and it's still ritual. You know, it's the very fundamentals of ritual, really. Metaphysical maintenance and body preparation, and you know, from your first shower, it's a mindful shower. You begin to adorn yourself. You dress yourself in a particular manner. Some might not. But either way, the way of preparing for a ritual, especially if you know that it's going to happen, if it's a set thing, it's easier. And then on the fly, when you're doing a spell just off cuff, you're like, for those who do engage in ritual, I find that they understand the feeling when they prepare for ritual. And so it's easier to get to that place. It's easier to get to that place if you've experienced that feeling time and time again, because you have accustomed yourself to preparing for ritual. So that when you act off cuff, you know exactly what it feels like when your consciousness shifts and you're in that ritual state of mind. And I find that it's a little bit easier to get there because you've had so much previous practice getting there as well.
And people say, well, look, if you do it the same way every time, don't you get bored? You should never be bored. You should have the ability to be spontaneous, right? You should have the ability to feel playful and creative. But if you do some things the same every way, then that's your container, right? Like, I like jazz. Not everybody likes jazz, but I like jazz. So you've got a melody. It's a known melody. You have a structure. You know how many bars it is, and then inside of that, you're improvising like crazy. But you're still going to get all of us, you know, you're improvising and it's going nuts. And then the next thing you know, it's like I Love Paris or Moonlight in Vermont or something. It's a known song, and structurally, the structure is there. So they know when to stop improvising and go back to the melody. That's what having the ritual, what having the structure creates for you. It creates the room where you can breathe all that spontaneous, amazing, playful stuff and still take advantage of all of the things that the structure and the repetition bring you.
Yep. Agreed. Yep. 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 Yes. Solid yeses to that. Solid yeses. Now, I would pick your brain a little bit on something that is a thing. It's a thing. Is what I like. I see this a lot. I see it a lot, and that is like getting ultra caught up in the detail to the detriment of the process. And so this could be, you know, simple gathering of ingredients for a spell, not having the right color of candle. It could be not being able to be outside because the weather's bad, so you have to be inside. It could mean, you know, just on elements. And there seems to be this this psychological thing that happens where if you can't have it the way that it's said to have it, that the power just then drains out of it because you get so caught up in the intricacies of having it exactly that way that you miss out on the delicious moment of just like relax. If you don't have that candle, use this candle. If you don't have that ingredient, use this ingredient. And I don't think there's enough emphasis on, and you know,
I see
just calming
it's so
down.
funny you saying that, because I see people do exactly the opposite. Like, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll just use a white candle, it doesn't matter. I mean, at some point, you know what, improvise and substitute. But there is a difference between a fresh rose and a picture of a rose.
Yes.
Throw away the effort, right? There has to be a balance. Don't let the effort kill you, but don't throw away the effort either. You have to find your balanced place.
Exactly right.
You know, I mean,
That's
keep
exactly
white
right.
candles in the house. Always keep white candles in the house. That is just like a basic thing. That is the bread and butter of witchcraft. White candles, man. Because if you have a color and a bunch of other things, but if you have a color and you can't find it and you need it, use the white candle. Dress the candle with some other color. Now, you know, you can't find a pink candle. The store was all out of pink candles because Valentine's Day was last week and they're all sold out. And you need a pink candle. You can't find one. Well, you got a white candle. Go and get something pink and dress the candle with it. Or use glitter.
Exactly.
You know?
Future reference, if you want this, glitter works a treat, so does lipstick and eyeshadow. So you can use makeup to actually dress a candle. Acceptable to change. Very adaptable.
I have never dressed a candle with makeup, but I have done my statues with makeup. You can put makeup on your statues. They like it.
Well, a hot tip. Here's this. I'm a bit of an art journaler, and there's a brand of watercolor called Daniel Smith, and they've actually created watercolors from the crushed pigment of stones and crystals. So you get hematite, amethyst, and so you've got these actual like crushed up pieces of metal that are formed into a pigment. So you could use that as well, and you could have a little bit of like mineral magic on your candle. There you go.
Sure.
There you go. That's the key.
Or wrap a pink ribbon around it. I mean,
yeah,
we can sit here and come up with 20 different ideas because we know that part of magic is to be creative. You know,
but
so between the two of us, we could just keep coming up with different ways of having pink candles when there are no pink candles.
And it's fabulous. It's fabulous. And you're absolutely right. I think that there is that mindset that can get ultra caught up, and understanding that there is a process is fundamental. There is a process, you know, there's a process. So follow the process. If you don't have the exact elements for the process, then you adapt those elements where you can. And this is where I like to introduce the concept of the doctrine of correspondence. So, like, you know, something similar that makes you feel the same way, you know, and, you know, I think that that's important to emphasize.
Sympathetic magic is the cornerstone. That is one of the, see, I forgot to mention that when I said what are the ways that what are the things that make magic work. I talked about time and space. I talked about intention. The other one is everything is connected to everything else. That is a core principle of magic. Everything is connected to everything else. When you're finding correspondence, you're finding connections. If I am going to do a spell on you, I have to figure out what connects me to you. And I can do that because everything is connected to everything else.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
exactly
so in sympathetic magic, anything that is like a thing is the thing.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
that is a basic principle of magic that goes back hundreds of years. Anything that is like a thing is a thing, is the thing. So a picture of you is like you. Your astrological sign is like you. A lock of your hair is like you. You know, something you once owned is like you. You know, so anything that is like a thing is the thing. So you're doing magic. When my son was very ill and we did magic on him, I had his baby book. And I put his baby book on the altar. I put my head on his baby book, and that was how we did the spell. It had, you know, his the first clip of his hair. It had his chart, his astrological chart. It had, you know, his first little baby pictures. It was, you know, those baby books that people keep. And that was, and I had that was in the ritual because it's like him, it is him. Therefore, he was in the ritual. That's how you do magic. That's how you transcend space, because you know, we were talking about before, transcend time and space. If he's there, if she's throwing food at me. Oh, no, I'm on video. You can't give me a bite. I'm on video. I can't sit here and chew.
Well, you can.
You have to say something so the video's on you. Oh my God.
Is it good? Excellent.
My spouse just started doing low carb.
Oh, yum.
So instead of pasta, she made spaghetti squash. So it's an experiment. Oh, it's so good.
Well, it's very nice that she came to cater to you in your interview. Like, that's nice.
She sneaked in and she stuck a fork in. Like there's like, here comes a fork, you know. So it's the thing. So transcending time and space, right? So how do you transcend space? Like, it takes energy to travel. This is a very cool principle. It takes energy to travel, right? You can't get from New York to Australia without energy. Your electricity or gasoline or, you know, kinetic energy, right? It takes energy. So when you're raising a power to send, if I'm doing magic on your behalf, I am literally going to be trying to send my power halfway across the room. If all of my, that's a lot of my power that I'm wasting in travel instead of into the spell itself. So what do we do about that? Well, you need to be in my ritual right here in the room with me. Then we don't have to worry about travel. And there's no energy spent on travel. So that's where sympathetic magic comes in. You are here in the ritual because I've taken a screenshot of this video, and there you are, and you're right here. You're not there, you're here because I've created a magical space that we're in together. And there's no travel, and no energy is wasted on travel. We've just made our spell work better.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep. That's it. That's it. That's everything, isn't it?
Yep. And that's
absolutely right.
All of that is detailed in the book. See how much of it I just gave away for free?
Well, tell me when the book is due for release in America, and then obviously it will take time to filter out into these more regional places.
It is due for release in June. People are already getting their preliminary copies. So I've got my copy, and a reviewer tweeted me today that she got her copy and loves it. So it'll be in bookstores in June. If you pre-order it on Barnes & Noble or Amazon or any of those places, you'll get it, you know, in the next 2 weeks probably. Fabulous. And it's well in worldwide distribution. So by the middle to the end of next month, you should have it, and you should be able to order it now.
Ooh, exciting. Fabulous. And if people wanted to get a hold of your other works, where would one go?
Well, they're available everywhere, you know, the same thing, barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, all. Llewellyn still sells most of them. Most of my books are Llewellyn books. Study of Witchcraft is through Weiser, but most of the others are Llewellyn books. I've been very happy with them as a publisher. And if you have trouble finding it, you can write to me at deborahlipp.com is my website. And that should be easy to remember. And or, you know, Facebook or tweet, or I'm easy to find.
Fabulous.
And
Fabulous.
excuse me. My Twitter is deblipauthor. Because somebody was already Deborah Lipp on Twitter, so I took Deborah Lipp author.
I hate that. Who's me? Who's me? Who's me out there? I have this trouble all the time.
And it's a weird name, right? So I wasn't expecting it. But if you have any trouble finding it, you know, feel free to write me, and I will look into. But all of my books are still in print. Print on demand has meant that your books can stay out there forever. I have a book on the tarot.
Ooh.
And wait, here, it's sitting here. Here we go. Let's see if I can get in the camera. Out of that book, you know, my late husband for years and years, like, when are you going to write a book on the tarot? When are you going to write a book on the tarot? Like once a month. When are you going to write a book on the tarot? And it took me forever, but I finally wrote a book on the tarot, and I'm very proud of it. It's called Tarot Interactions, and again, I did not in any way tie it to Wicca. I don't think that everybody has to be me in order to appreciate the things I do. If you're not into Wicca but you like tarot, go for it.
I agree. I agree. You know, it's one thing to weave things together personally for yourself. It's quite another to try and make other people do it. So I appreciate that. And that's beautiful. So I already knew ahead of time that you were into tarot. And I think beautiful Anna was the one to tell me that. And yeah, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. Tasty, tasty. Have you got any plans to make any tarot decks? There's a question for you.
Well, at least I'm friends with an amazing artist. I don't. I love tarot decks, and they all sort of blow me away. And I don't, in order for me to do it, I would have to feel I had something very special to add. There's such a body of amazing, amazing decks. And I would have to feel that I had something that you couldn't get anywhere else. I do the same thing when I write a book, right? I mean, I don't write a book just to write a book. I write a book that I feel doesn't exist anywhere. Like, that's
perfect.
important.
And I think it should be like that. I think that's exactly what it is, because there's far too many books that are you know, versions of themselves out there. So it's nice to get something that's a little different here and there, you know. And I find, especially within the spectrum of occult books, you'll read 20 occult books and they'll generally cover the same materials in just about every book. Like, all the basics are covered in just about every book. And it would be nice to see more continuity of not necessarily advanced material, but more specific material, you know, specifically covering one topic, specifically exploring one facet of practice. I think that would be nice.
I think that is something that, like, is a tragedy about books on Wicca. Oh, there's moon phases, there's the 8 holidays, there's the Wiccan Read, there's the goddess and the horn god, and there's death and rebirth, and whoa, I've read that book 50 times. And I said, you know, there was just a period of time when it was like, oh, these are all the same books I've read, they just have different titles and authors. And who needs that? And I was never going to write that. That is not me. You know, I would be ashamed to write that.
Yeah. I
write a book that I feel no one has written before. And all of my books, I feel, are unique, and they if you like them and if it's what you want, they have a place on your shelf because there's nothing else like them. You know, I feel strongly about that. Otherwise, why am I sitting up at midnight at my desk type when I could be relaxing like a normal person?
Exactly. It takes time and effort to write and create any form. any form of art out there. And, you know, literature is one of those great forms of art that, you know, thank God is still alive. Thank God. I'd be a little bit lost without books, and I'm sure many other people would be lost without books as well. So thank you very much for writing all of these beautiful books and for chatting with us about it. Now, I would also like to know, for those who are more in your area, do you offer any kind of workshops? Do you do open circle gatherings from time to time? Is there a way for people to physically connect with you if they're a little bit closer by?
I don't do open circles. Feel that my gift as a priestess is that one-on-one connection. So, you know, that work in a coven. I do workshops and classes when I can, when the opportunity presents itself. Next month in New York City, I'm going to be doing a class called How to Be Psychic at the New York Tarot Society.
Wonderful.
And so when I have the opportunity to do workshops and classes, I really try to do that. And I do post my my schedule. I will be at Starwood in Ohio in July. And I will probably be doing some workshops in California in the fall. We'll see what else. Yeah, I'm always around. I'm always around. I can be had. That's the thing, is if you own a bookstore or you run an event or you're interested in doing this with me, contact me and we will make it happen. I am have witchcraft will travel.
Have witchcraft. That should be a t-shirt right there. That's a t-shirt. That is so perfect. That's so perfect. Well, Deborah, I don't think we've had any more questions come through, so we should just try to wrap that up. Is there anything that you could possibly say for any budding author out there that might want to enter the realm of, say, Llewellyn books, for instance? Are there any hot tips that you could give anyone that's sort of like just wanting to sort of dip their toe in that particular arena?
Yeah, don't freak out about how well written it is, because it's a first draft. You can fix it later. They don't put that first word down because they're so scared of writing it wrong. Write it wrong, then you can fix it. But if you don't write it at all, you can't fix it. And I work from an outline. Like, to me, the scary part was everybody can write an essay, right? You can sit down and you can write, you know, 500 words on something. You can write a diatribe about what a jerk your neighbor is. Everybody can write an essay, you know. So how do you turn an essay, your ability to write an essay, into a book? Well, if you write a careful enough outline, it's just a list of essays. So all you have to do is write one essay at a time. That's how I did it. That was the trick that did it for me, that helped me learn how to become a writer and really get into long form. So that's my trick.
That's perfect. That's exactly the magic that I was looking for, particularly because that's something that we learn at university here in Australia as well, how to mind map and how to, you know, how to dot point things and then build your story up to have a beginning, middle, and end for each point. Beginning, middle, and end. Beginning, middle, and end. And beautiful. That's beautiful. It's good to see that that's utilized somewhere else, you know, because once you've written a university essay, you think, well, where else will I ever use that skill?
Anything you write, honestly, anything you write. There's horrible writing out there. People are bad writers. That's the basic.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you very much, Deborah Lipp, for hanging out with us, for chatting here with my gorgeous subscribers. This video will go live on my channel. Well, it's live on my channel now, but it will go recorded on my channel, so people will be able to watch it to come, and I've put your details and your little links in the description box of this video, so if anyone needs to get in touch with you or find any of your awesome works, they can do so that way.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, thanks so much again. And thank you everyone for watching. And we will be back at a different time.
Right.
So look after yourself, beautiful people. Take care.